Born in 1491, Henry VIII was never supposed to be king. That destiny was originally reserved for his older brother, Prince Arthur, the golden boy of the Tudor family. But fate had other plans. When Arthur died suddenly in 1502, it placed young Henry in line for the throne, a role he had never been prepared for. When his father, Henry VII, passed away in 1509, the crown passed to his second son. Henry VIII was just 17 years old when he became king, and the course of English history was forever altered. Catherine of Aragon, the first queen, Henry's first wife, Catherine of Aragon, came from one of the most powerful royal families in Europe. She was the daughter of Ferdinand and Isabella, the Catholic monarchs of Spain who united their kingdoms and funded Christopher Columbus. Catherine was not just royal, she was also highly educated, fiercely devout, and well-versed in politics and court life. Catherine had originally been married to Henry's brother, Arthur. They were just 15 and 16 when they wed, practically children. Not long after, both became seriously ill. Catherine recovered, but Arthur died only a few months into the marriage. Whether the marriage was consummated or not remains one of history's great debates. After Arthur's death, Catherine's fate was uncertain, but political interests prevailed, and plans were made for her to marry young Henry. Because Henry was still underage, Catherine remained in England for several years, isolated, uncertain, and stuck in diplomatic limbo. Finally, when Henry turned 18 and Catherine was 23, they married. At first, things went well. Henry seemed genuinely fond of her, and Catherine quickly became pregnant. Sadly, the child was stillborn. Though she eventually gave birth to a daughter, Mary, no male heir ever survived. As time wore on and the pressure for a son mounted, Henry's affections faded. He began taking mistresses and even fathered an illegitimate son, Henry Fitzroy, with Elizabeth Blount, one of Catherine's ladies-in-waiting. He acknowledged this child, an unusual move for the time, which only humiliated Catherine further. But it was another lady-in-waiting who truly changed the course of Henry's reign, Anne Boleyn, Queen of Controversy. Enter Anne Boleyn, a woman whose name is forever etched in the annals of English history. Interestingly, she wasn't even Henry's first interest in the Boleyn family. That honor went to her sister, Mary Boleyn, who had a brief affair with the king. But when Mary married without Henry's permission, he turned his gaze to Anne. Anne had served as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine and was known for her wit, education, and style. She was clever enough to resist Henry's advances at first. Instead of becoming just another mistress, Anne held out, insisting that if he truly wanted her, he would have to marry her. But there was one problem. Henry was still married to Catherine. In the Catholic world, divorce wasn't an option, so Henry tried to annul his marriage by claiming it had never been valid in the first place, because Catherine had been his brother's wife. The Pope refused, and the situation escalated. Frustrated, Henry broke from the Catholic Church, formed the Church of England, and declared himself its head. In 1533, without the Pope's blessing, he married Anne Boleyn, triggering a religious and political earthquake across Europe. Anne's queenship began in scandal and didn't improve much. She gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth. Yes, that Elizabeth, but like Catherine before her, she suffered multiple miscarriages and never produced a male heir. Henry's frustrations grew. In 1536, just 3 years into the marriage, Anne was charged with treason, adultery, and incest. The charges were almost certainly false, but they were enough. Anne was convicted and executed by sword, her once promising future cut tragically short. Jane Seymour, the quiet favorite. Just 11 days after Anne's death, Henry married Jane Seymour, another lady-in-waiting. Jane was modest, soft-spoken, and obedient, a stark contrast to Anne's fiery nature. Henry seemed to adore her, perhaps because she offered the one thing he craved above all else: a legitimate son. In 1537, Jane gave birth to Edward, Henry's long-awaited heir. But the joy was short-lived. Jane fell gravely ill due to complications from childbirth and died just days later. Henry was devastated. He wore black for months and later requested to be buried beside her, the only wife to receive that honor. Anne of Cleves, the political match. After Jane's death, Henry remained single for over 2 years, the longest he ever went without a wife. But eventually, for diplomatic reasons, he agreed to marry again. Enter Anne of Cleves, a German noblewoman whose portrait flattered her looks a bit too much. When she arrived in England in 1540, Henry reportedly was deeply disappointed by her appearance. Despite the awkward start, they married, but the union was never consummated. Just 6 months later, the marriage was annulled. To her credit, Anne took the news with grace. She was given the title Sister to the King, a generous settlement, and remained in England, where she lived comfortably for the rest of her life. The two even remained friends, and rumors swirled that they might remarry, though it never happened. Catherine Howard, the doomed teen bride. Henry's next wife was Catherine Howard, a cousin of Anne Boleyn and another teenage lady-in-waiting. When they married, Henry was nearly 50 and in poor health. Catherine was likely only 15 or 16. At first, the young queen brought joy and energy to Henry's court, but her past caught up with her. She had had premarital relationships, which was scandalous enough. Even worse, she began an affair after marrying the king. When the truth came out, Henry was furious. Feeling deceived and humiliated, he ordered her execution in 1542. Catherine Howard became the second wife to be beheaded, and yet another tragic chapter in Henry's love life. Katherine Parr, the survivor. Finally, we come to Katherine Parr, the sixth and final wife. Older than her predecessors and already twice widowed, Catherine was not chosen for her looks or fertility. She was chosen for her compassion, intelligence, and caretaking skills. Married in 1543, Catherine was more nurse than lover to the aging king. She helped manage his household, bonded with his children, and played a key role in restoring Mary and Elizabeth to the line of succession. Catherine Parr outlived Henry VIII, becoming one of only 2 wives to survive him. Their marriage lasted until his death in 1547, bringing an end to one of the most infamous marital sagas in royal history.